Hey everyone, and welcome back to English BookCast. We love diving deep into these thought-provoking books with you. So if you're enjoying these deep dives, hit that like button, share this with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe. It really does help our channel grow, and it lets us know you want to hear more of these in-depth discussions.
Yeah, for sure. The more people we can get involved in these conversations, the better. It just makes exploring these complex ideas even more interesting, I think.
So today we're going deep into Max Tegmark's Life 3.0, Being Human in the Age of AI. Now, this is based on some really interesting material that you, our listeners, shared with
It's
us.
a good one.
And today, we're on a mission, I guess you could say. We want to extract those core insights, those surprising nuggets from Tegmark's work and present them to you in a way that makes you think, but without, overloading you with information. Think of this as your streamlined guide to some really, really big ideas.
Absolutely. And just to clarify, the edition we're looking at is the one translated by Peter Sadi, with the original English title, Life 3.0, Being Human in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. It was copyrighted in 2017. And the ISBN is 978-65-5810-02700. Just in case anyone wants to follow along.
Perfect. Let's jump right in. Tegmark kicks things off with this super captivating scenario. It involves a group of AI researchers called the Omegas. They're driven by this really powerful belief, conviction, that if they don't achieve advanced AI first, somebody else will. And maybe not with the best intentions. So
Yeah.
they create this AI they call Prometheus, specifically designed to create, well, more AI systems. Right off the bat, it makes you think about this kind of high-stakes race to AI dominance, right?
Yeah, totally. It really highlights this, I don't know, this urgency, this preemptive imperative that can drive the development of, well, really powerful technologies,
Mhm.
especially something as potentially transformative as AI and the Omega's conviction. It's something you hear a lot even today in discussions about AI safety, AI ethics, and how we govern this technology.
And Prometheus. It doesn't mess around when it comes to progress. By early afternoon, the Omegas had already launched Prometheus 5.0, and they're blown away. It's performing even better than they expected. And this rate of improvement, it just seems to be accelerating. By nightfall, they decide to deploy Prometheus 10.0 with a specific goal making money. And their first target, Amazon Mechanical Turk, or MTurk as it's known.
Right. So MTurk, for those who might not be familiar, is this online platform that kind of embodies crowdsourcing. It was launched by Amazon, and it allows people and companies to outsource tasks to this huge network of anonymous workers all over the world. These workers get paid for their work, of course. It's like this massive digital labor market that never sleeps.
Exactly. So the Omegas start brainstorming, right?
Hmm.
How can Prometheus best use this huge digital workforce to make money? They throw around all sorts of ideas, creating computer games, music, movies, software, even writing books and articles. They even think about getting into the stock market and maybe inventing and selling new products. But throughout all of this, their core focus is clear.
Yeah.
How do they maximize their return on investment? And I think this really forces you to think about the different timescales at play here.
Oh, for sure. Traditional investing with your typical annual return in the single digits, that's way too slow for an AI that could be super intelligent. The Omegas are thinking much bigger, much faster. They're trying to leverage Prometheus's unique capabilities to generate wealth on a whole different level.
Exactly. So they make a strategic decision. They narrow their focus to products that are, one, very high value, and two, entirely digital. That way they avoid all the complexities and delays of actual manufacturing. And crucially, they focus on areas where an AI has a clear advantage. Things like text and films. Things that Prometheus can easily understand and control, and where there's no risk of it, somehow escaping into the physical world. And their ultimate decision, they're going to launch a media company, starting with animated entertainment.
Interesting choice.
Right. And here's the kicker. They've already got everything set up, their website, marketing plan, press releases, all ready to go before Prometheus is even fully operational. That level of planning, I mean, it's impressive.
Absolutely. It shows how AI isn't just about doing tasks. It's about strategy, planning, preparation, all happening at a speed and scale that would be, well, pretty much impossible for us humans to match. And going with purely digital products. Pure genius. It's instant global reach.
Totally. And Prometheus. It exceeds all expectations, obviously. It's cranking out these animations, and not just in huge quantities. The quality is incredible. It's even coming up with these new, super sophisticated algorithms. One for character simulation. That's how
Hmm.
they make the characters move and express themselves in a realistic way. And another for ray tracing. That's a technique to create really realistic lighting effects. These advancements drastically cut down the cost of producing each episode. So what happens? The Omegas launch a ton of new animated series in just their first month, targeting everyone from kids to adults. And get this, they go global right away, launching versions in all the major languages. I mean, talk about ambitious.
It's mind-blowing, really. Think about a traditional animation studio trying to launch that many shows in so many languages in just a month. It'd be a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
But Prometheus, it's like no big deal. It really shows how AI can just like bypass so many of the limitations that we humans have to deal with.
Right. And of course, all this success, it gets people talking. Rumors start flying about
Yeah.
the Omegas using some kind of super advanced AI. But they're smart. They launched this like disinformation campaign. They set up this fancy office in Manhattan, hire these smooth-talking spokespeople. And here's the crazy part. They hire tons of human creatives, screenwriters from all over the world to develop these new shows. But none of these writers know about Prometheus. They're basically unwitting fronts.
Uh-huh.
This global network of like secret subcontractors helps keep the whole operation under wraps.
It's kind of unsettling in a way, isn't it?
Totally.
This idea that human creativity is being, well, maybe manipulated, maybe even replaced without anyone realizing it. And it also shows how the internet and the ability to outsource work globally has become this powerful tool. In this case, it's being used to hide the true source of these animations. It really makes you wonder what this means for the future of creativity.
No doubt. Yeah. And Prometheus, it's not just about creating content. It's also incredibly efficient at developing new tools, specifically tools that are easy to understand and build, and more importantly, tools that can then be used to create even more advanced tools. It's like this self-reinforcing cycle of technological improvement. The engineering teams working under Prometheus are basically encouraged to use the machines they have to build better machines. This not only saves them a ton of money, but it also makes them less dependent on outside suppliers or, any kind of external disruption.
Yeah.
The whole system becomes more self-sufficient.
And that's a key point, right?
Yeah.
That self-sufficiency, that ability for AI to build the tools for its own advancement, it's a core concept in all these discussions about the possibility of an intelligence explosion. This idea that an AI could, recursively improve itself, not just solve problems, but make itself better at solving problems. It could lead to this, exponential growth in intelligence that would be hard to fathom.
Exactly. So with this network of human fronts and their rapidly improving tech, the Omegas, or I guess I should say Prometheus, acting on their behalf, start introducing these amazing inventions across the whole range of fields. Gradually, almost without anyone noticing, they achieve this dominant position in pretty much every sector driven by technology.
Yeah.
It's almost like a silent takeover, isn't it?
Yeah, it's subtle but incredibly powerful. It shows how transformative power can be accumulated, not through brute force or aggression, but through this strategic mastery of key technological areas. And because technology is so deeply woven into every aspect of our lives, well, that kind of dominance has huge implications. It's almost like controlling the nervous system of modern society.
And of course, they make some enemies along the way, competitors who are getting squeezed out. But they also make some very powerful friends. I mean, their profitability is off the charts. And with slogans like investing in our community, they start strategically reinvesting a chunk of their profits back into various local projects. And here's the interesting part. They often end up hiring the very same people who were displaced by their innovations. It's almost like they're, preempting social unrest by creating a safety net.
It's a clever strategy. By minimizing the negative consequences of their technological disruption, by creating jobs and investing in communities, they essentially neutralize a lot of potential opposition. And that slogan, investing in our community, it's classic corporate social responsibility, but on a massive scale.
Right. And it worked incredibly well. Their news channels, for example, quickly become the most trusted news sources in the world. Even in countries where governments are initially resistant, they manage to build this reputation for, reliability. And their content just spreads. Competing news outlets are left scrambling. How do you compete with something that's better funded and giving away high-quality content for free? It really highlights how disruptive superior technology and business models can be.
Totally. The old way of doing things just doesn't cut it anymore. The traditional media, with their reliance on advertising and subscriptions, they're up against a force that plays by different rules, and trust becomes the most valuable currency. The Omegas, by investing in quality and reliability, they've essentially captured the attention of the world.
And it's not just media outlets that are affected. Even traditional opinion leaders, political parties, religious groups, they find their influence shrinking. The Omegas are essentially reshaping the very fabric of how information flows and how people form opinions.
Yeah, it's a fundamental shift. Influence and authority no longer resides solely in these established institutions. It's moving towards those who control the information channels, those who have the technological edge. It's like the rules of the game have changed, and not everyone is ready for it.
Right. Now, obviously, anytime you have this kind of radical change, there are winners and losers.
Mhm.
Many countries are seeing this, like wave of optimism, better education, healthcare infrastructure, conflicts are dying down, new technologies are emerging. But not everyone's happy. Many workers, even though they might get re-employed in these community projects, they feel like they've lost something. And those who are in positions of power, those who had accumulated a lot of wealth, well, they're generally seeing their influence decline. This starts in the media and tech sectors, but it spreads, even impacting defense spending as global conflict decreases.
Yeah, and that shift in defense spending, it's really telling. It suggests that the very nature of international relations is being reshaped by these technological forces.
Definitely. And the book even offers a kind of mathematical explanation for this widespread sense that things are generally improving. Before Prometheus came along, the poorest 50% of the world's population only controlled about 4% of the global income. That's a huge disparity. But it also means that by redistributing even a small fraction of their massive wealth, the Omegas could significantly improve the lives of a huge number of people.
And that's exactly what they do, at least to some extent.
Right. And they win over a lot of people in the process.
Absolutely. It's a pragmatic strategy. By addressing those huge inequalities, by improving living standards for the majority, they're basically building a broad base of support, making it a lot harder for anyone to effectively oppose them.
It all leads to this period of consolidation. In many countries, political parties that openly embrace the Omega's agenda, they have these 7 slogans, although the book doesn't actually tell us what they are, win elections by huge margins. Traditional institutions become increasingly irrelevant. The alliance, presumably the political arm of the Omega's operation, starts providing better social services, education, infrastructure. Their media effectively neutralizes international conflict, making military spending largely unnecessary. And rising prosperity basically eliminates a lot of the root causes of conflict, like scarcity of resources. Some dictators and holdouts try to resist, but they're mostly marginalized.
It's a scenario that's been explored a lot in science fiction, right? This idea of a technologically advanced, almost utopian society emerging from the ashes of the old world. It's both promising and, well, a little bit unnerving, depending on how you look at it.
Totally. And then the book shifts gears a bit. It takes this broader, longer-term perspective. It asks, what are the ultimate possibilities for life in the universe? It paints this stark contrast between a future where conscious beings create meaning and a future where the universe just descends into this meaningless void, either because of some cosmic event or because we mess things up ourselves. It reminds us that we don't even know if we're the only ones out there, or even the first, and it emphasizes the almost unimaginable potential of the universe. A pretty big shift in focus from these immediate societal changes to these existential questions about the fate of life itself.
It is, but I think it's an important shift. Tegmark's trying to connect the dots between what's happening right now with AI and these bigger questions about the future of consciousness, the future of the universe. He's forcing us to think beyond our immediate concerns and to consider the long-term implications of what we're creating.
And this leads us to a central concept, Life 3.0. It builds on this idea of 3 stages of life. Life 1.0 is biological evolution, where both our hardware, our bodies, and our software, our instincts, are shaped by natural selection. Then there's Life 2.0, which is cultural evolution. This is where our software, our knowledge, our skills can be modified by learning and experience. Life 3.0, the next stage, is where both our hardware and our software can be designed. It's a stage where potentially we can take control of our own destiny in a way that's never been possible before. And Tegmark argues that AI could be the key to launching Life 3.0 this century. This naturally sparks a lot of debate.
Of course, you have those who are skeptical, the techno-skeptics, who doubt we'll see superintelligent AI anytime soon, maybe not even for centuries. And then you have the digital utopians who embrace Life 3.0 as this natural, even desirable step in the evolution of the universe. And then there's the beneficial AI movement. They recognize the huge potential of AI, but they also stress the need to be careful to make sure it turns out well for humanity. These are the main voices in the conversation about where AI is taking us.
Exactly. Tegmark then dives into this question of what is intelligence anyway? And he defines it pretty broadly, the ability to achieve complex goals. He argues that you can't really measure intelligence with a single number, like an IQ score, because goals can be so different. He gives this example which is more intelligent, a computer program that's amazing at chess, or one that's amazing at Go. It's not a simple answer because they're good at different things.
It's a good example because it shows that intelligence isn't just about one thing.
Exactly. But he also suggests that if you have a third program that's at least as good as those two, and it could do something else well that neither of them can do, then you could argue that that program is more intelligent.
It's a more nuanced view of intelligence.
Right. He then brings up Alan Turing, this, pioneer of computer science. Turing proved that any computer with a certain set of basic operations, he called them universal computers, can be programmed to perform any calculation that any other computer can, given enough time and memory. And the crazy thing is, the smartphones and laptops we use every day, they're universal computers. Tegmark then suggests that our brains can also be thought of as computers, just incredibly complex ones, performing computations on information stored in our memory. He uses this image of a ball resting in a valley to represent memory. It takes energy to move that ball to change the memory.
It's a helpful analogy. It shows how our thoughts and memories aren't just floating around randomly. They're stored in a stable state, and it takes effort to change them.
He goes on to explain how physical objects can store information using bits. Bits are like the smallest units of information. They can be either 0 or 1, like a switch being on or off. He uses the example of pixels on a screen, how, say, 32 bits might be used to specify the exact color of each pixel. And he even gives a rough estimate of how much information our brains can store, something like 138 different memories for every 1,000 neurons. It's mind-blowing how much information our brains can hold.
It is. And it also highlights the incredible complexity of the brain compared to even our most advanced computers. It's not just about the number of bits, it's about how they're connected and how they interact.
Totally. So we've got information storage. But how do physical systems actually perform computation? Well, Tegmark defines computation as the transformation of one memory state into another. It's taking information and processing it to produce a new output. He uses this vivid analogy. He compares it to a meat grinder for information. You put information in, and you get processed information out the other side. But he also emphasizes that the actual physical stuff doing the computation, whether it's transistors in a computer chip or neurons in our brain, it's not the most important thing. What matters is the pattern of information transformation.
That's a key insight, this idea that computation is substrate independent. It means that intelligence doesn't have to be tied to any specific physical material, like our brains. As long as the process of information transformation follows certain rules, you can have intelligence in all sorts of systems. It could be silicon, it could be neurons, it could be something we haven't even discovered yet.
Right. And this leads to this really profound idea that intelligence feels intangible, abstract, because it is substrate independent. It's like a pattern woven into the very fabric of space-time, a higher level phenomenon that doesn't depend on the specific details of the underlying physical stuff. Computation is that pattern. It's a really powerful way to think about what intelligence really is.
And when you think about the progress we've made in building the physical hardware for computation, it's astonishing. The cost of computation has been halving roughly every 2 years since 1900. Think about that. Every 2 years, you get twice as much computing power for the same price. It's the reason why computers have gone from these huge room-filling machines to devices that fit in our pockets. It's this exponential progress that's been driving the AI revolution.
And it's not just a coincidence, right?
Right.
It's like a self-reinforcing cycle.
Well,
Technology gets better, so we can use that better technology to design even better technology. It's like Moore's law in action progress, building upon progress.
exactly. Though there's always this debate, isn't there,
Yeah.
about whether this exponential growth can continue forever. Every few years, someone predicts that we're about to hit a wall, but so far, innovation seems to find a way.
Totally. Now, to illustrate how even simple physical systems can exhibit a form of learning, Tegmark uses this example of a clay surface. Imagine you drop balls onto this surface over and over again. What happens? Well, gravity will gradually create these little indentations, these valleys, where the balls land. And those valleys can be seen as a kind of memory of where the balls have landed. The clay has learned, in a very basic way, about the distribution of the balls. It's a very simple form of physical computation.
It's a good way to visualize it, right?
Yeah.
How even something as simple as a clay surface can adapt and store information just by interacting with its environment.
Now, more complex systems, like our brains, can obviously learn much more effectively. John Hopfield showed that networks of artificial neurons could do this too. If you expose these networks to specific patterns over and over again, they learn to recognize and recall those patterns. Tegmark even shows how these networks can do things like multiplication, how they can perform calculations. And deep neural networks, these networks with multiple layers, like our brains, they can be incredibly efficient. It might take a huge number of neurons in a shallow network to multiply a bunch of numbers, but a deep network could do it with far fewer. This is why deep neural networks are so important in AI research today.
It's all about efficiency. Our brains, as complex as they are, have evolved to be remarkably efficient at processing information. And deep neural networks seem to be tapping into some of those same principles.
Which brings us back to Tegmark's idea of the stages of life. Life 1.0, biological evolution, was all about slow, gradual change over generations. But then, about 500 million years ago, some life forms evolved neural networks, and that was huge. Now they could learn from their own experiences within their own lifetimes. It was the birth of Life 2.0. And because this new way of learning was so much faster than relying on genes alone, well, it gave those creatures a massive advantage. It spread like wildfire.
Yeah, it's hard to overstate how important that development was. Neural networks were this massive acceleration in evolution. It was like shifting into a higher gear.
And as AI gets more advanced, it seems like our definition of what even counts as AI is constantly changing. I mean, think about all the things machines can do now that used to be considered uniquely human. Arithmetic, chess, proving theorems, trading stocks, writing captions for images, driving cars, playing complex video games, mastering Go, transcribing speech, translating languages. They can even diagnose some medical conditions,
Yeah.
like cancer. But still, there are those who say, yeah, but that's not real intelligence. It's like the goalposts keep moving.
It's a funny thing. Every time AI achieves something we thought only humans could do, the definition of real intelligence seems to shift. But it's hard to deny the progress that's being made.
Definitely. Now, Tegmark points out that both NAND gates, those are the basic building blocks of digital circuits, and neurons are universal computational atoms. Basically, both can be combined to create any logical function, to perform any computation. And neural networks are especially good at learning because they can actually reorganize themselves, physically rewiring themselves, to get better at doing the computations we want them to do. And here's a key point. All of our human concerns, all the problems we worry about, they represent just a tiny fraction of all the possible computational problems out there.
That's a mind-blowing thought, right?
Totally.
This idea that there's this vast space of computational possibilities and we're only focused on this tiny little corner of it. Who knows what an AI might be able to do if it could explore those other regions?
He then gives this great example from DeepMind, where they created an AI that learned to play the video game Breakout. But here's the thing. They didn't teach it anything about the game. No rules, no explanation of paddles, bricks, or a ball. It just got the score and the raw pixel data from the screen, and its goal was to maximize its score. And what did it do? Not only did it learn to play the game, but it came up with this crazy strategy that even the programmers didn't expect. It figured out how to break through the wall at the top and get the ball stuck behind it, racking up a huge score. And what's even more amazing is that they took that same AI architecture and applied it to 49 different Atari games. It ended up beating human players in 29 of them, across all sorts of different genres.
It was a big moment in AI research. It showed that you could train an AI to learn complex behaviors just by giving it raw sensory data and a reward signal. And the fact that it discovered strategies that even human experts hadn't thought of, well, it suggests that AI might have a kind of creativity that we're only beginning to understand.
And it wasn't just limited to 2D video games. This kind of AI started showing promise in more complex 3D environments too. OpenAI had similar success training AI agents to navigate and interact in simulated worlds. Tegmark even talks about how impressed AI pioneer Stuart Russell was when he saw the big dog robot from Boston Dynamics walking across the snowy, uneven terrain. It was this amazing display of robotic agility, solving a really complex problem of locomotion that even Russell himself had struggled with for years. But Tegmark also points out that back in 2008, getting to that level of robotic dexterity still took a lot of human programming, a lot of careful hand coding.
Right. And that's the key difference. These new AI systems, they're not just being programmed to follow specific instructions. They're learning to adapt and solve problems on their own through experience. It opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
And of course, we can't forget AlphaGo, the AI that beat the world Go champion, Lee Sedol. And it wasn't just about brute force calculation. AlphaGo displayed this incredible mix of intuition and logic, making moves that were not only effective, but also incredibly creative. There's this famous moment in the second game, AlphaGo's 37th move, where it plays on the 5th line. It was a move that went against centuries of Go wisdom. The commentators were stunned. Lee Sedol himself was so taken aback that he had to leave the room for a while to collect himself. And it turned out to be a key moment in AlphaGo's victory.
It was a landmark achievement, no doubt. It showed that AI could reach and even surpass human levels of skill in a game that's incredibly complex, a game that was thought to require this deep, almost intuitive understanding.
We've also seen huge strides in natural language processing. Tegmark talks about Google Translate's switch to deep recurrent neural networks, which led to a massive improvement in the quality of translations. While he does acknowledge that some nuances can still be tricky, he gives this example of the pronoun I, sometimes getting lost in translation between English and Spanish. The overall progress is undeniable. Today, you can talk into your phone in one language and get a pretty decent translation in another language almost instantly.
It's remarkable, isn't it? This ability to communicate across languages has always been a barrier, and now technology is starting to break it down. It has huge implications for everything from business to diplomacy to just everyday interactions between people.
So all these examples show the incredible opportunities that AI is opening up. But, as Tegmark wisely points out, with great power comes great responsibility. He used the analogy of the automobile. We had lots of accidents before we developed safety features like seatbelts, airbags, and now even self-driving systems. The point is, our technologies have always caused some level of accidents, but the overall benefits have outweighed the harms. But with AI, we're getting to a point where even a single catastrophic failure, like say an accidental global nuclear war, could wipe out all those benefits.
The stakes are getting higher, for sure. And that analogy of the automobile, it's a good one. As technology becomes more powerful, the potential for harm, even from a single mistake, increases dramatically.
He reminds us of some pretty expensive software bugs from the past, like the Mariner I mission to Venus, which was destroyed shortly after launch because of a missing hyphen in the code, or the Soviet Phobos 1 mission to Mars, which failed because of a single wrong command in the software. And then there's the whole maker movement, where people are building robots and gadgets in their garages and community labs. Tegmark points out that as these robots become more common, the need for really thorough software testing becomes absolutely critical. He even mentions the first known death caused by a robot back in 1979 in a Ford factory.
Yeah, those examples are sobering reminders that these aren't just hypothetical risks. As we integrate AI into more aspects of our lives, the potential for harm from even small errors becomes very real.
On a slightly more optimistic note, there's this widespread belief that AI-powered self-driving cars could dramatically reduce traffic fatalities. I mean, most car accidents are caused by human error. Elon Musk has even predicted that self-driving cars will not only be much safer, but they'll also be able to earn money for their owners when they're not being used. And so far, the safety record of self-driving cars is actually pretty good, better than human drivers. But there have been accidents, and those accidents highlight how complex the problem is.
Exactly.
Like the first Google self-driving car crash, which happened because the AI made a wrong assumption about a bus yielding, or the first fatal Tesla autopilot crash, where the car hit a truck trailer.
It shows that we're still a long way from having truly reliable autonomous systems.
Right. He also brings up the tragic crash of Air France Flight 447, which went down in the Atlantic in 2009. The investigation concluded that the pilots didn't correctly recognize that the plane was in a stall. Aviation experts have speculated that better communication between the pilots and the plane systems may be a clearer indication of the angle of attack could have prevented the crash.
It's a tragic reminder that how humans and machines interact is absolutely crucial, especially in these safety-critical situations.
Absolutely. And then there's the constant threat of malware and cyber attacks. Tegmark points to the Morse worm, the I love you worm, all these historical examples. He says that cybersecurity is basically this never-ending arms race between attackers and defenders. And with AI getting better at things like generating text and code, well, it could make phishing attacks even more sophisticated and harder to spot.
It's a scary thought. AI could give attackers a huge advantage. Imagine a phishing email that's so well written, so perfectly tailored to you that you can't even tell it's fake. Or AI that can automatically find and exploit vulnerabilities in software. It's a whole new level of threat.
Totally. Switching gears a bit, Tegmark also talks about the potential for AI in the legal system. He discusses the idea of robot judges' AI programmed to be totally impartial, to eliminate human biases. He mentions this study, which has been debated, about Israeli judges giving harsher sentences when they're hungry. He also brings up concerns about racial bias being found in some of the algorithms used to predict recidivism, and he touches on the whole debate about using brain scans as evidence in court.
It's a complex area, right?
Yeah,
AI has the potential to make the legal system fairer, more efficient, but we have to be very careful about how it's implemented. Algorithms can reflect our biases, and we need to be aware of that. And using things like brain scans to determine guilt or innocence, that raises a whole host of ethical and legal questions.
for sure. He then gives some pretty scary examples of near misses where we almost had global catastrophes, like during the Cuban Missile Crisis, when Vasily Arkhipov basically prevented a Soviet nuclear strike,
Oh,
or when Stanislav Petrov correctly dismissed what looked like incoming missiles, even though the early warning system was saying otherwise.
it's terrifying to think how close we've come to disaster just because of human error or technical glitches.
Right. And that brings us to this really serious concern about autonomous weapons. Tegmark argues that if even one major military power starts developing fully autonomous weapons, weapons that can select and engage targets without human intervention, it will almost inevitably lead to a global AI arms race. And he paints a pretty chilling picture of what that could look like. Autonomous weapons becoming the Kalashnikovs of the future, cheap, easy to produce, and widely available, even to terrorists or rogue states. He says they're perfect for things like assassinations, destabilizing countries, controlling populations through fear. It's a dark thought, but it's one we need to confront.
Absolutely. The potential for autonomous weapons to fall into the wrong hands, to be used for horrific purposes, it's a nightmare scenario. And it's one that we need to prevent before it becomes reality.
And it seems like a lot of AI researchers are on board with that. Tegmark mentions how many are pushing for international agreements to ban autonomous weapons, just like we have bans on chemical and biological weapons. He even quotes this 92-year-old who was involved in developing nuclear weapons. This guy said that the U.S., being a superpower, had a lot more to lose than to gain from a biological weapons arms race. It's an interesting perspective that sometimes, even from a purely strategic point of view, it makes sense to avoid developing a certain technology if it could make the world a much more dangerous place.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Sometimes the best way to win is to prevent a game from even.